Okay, we shall call the meeting to order. Commission meeting, June 11th, 5 p.m. Cynthia, can we get a roll call, please?
Let the record reflect that all commissioners are present, with the exception of Commissioner Williams, who has an excused absence today.
Great, and Don Yon is just running just a teeny bit late. He'll be here in a couple of minutes. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Marie, will you lead us tonight?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comments on non-agenda items. Public comments are invited on non-agenda items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, we invite, but do not require you to state your name for the record. The Harbor Commission has discretion to extend or shorten the speaker's time limits on non-agenda items, provided the time limit adjustment is applied equally to all speakers. As a courtesy, please turn cell phones off or put them in the silent mode. Thank you. Public comments? Please.
Yes, so my name is Joel Romero, and I'm with Eco Yacht Group. I think you guys had a presentation there. This is out of Rothwell. And basically, we have a solution for the TMDL that obviously is plaguing our marinas nationwide, not just here in Newport Beach. As we all know, marinas don't really have great water flow, and the toxic chemicals that come off the bottom paints and off the boats obviously just layers and layers into our ecosystem, which obviously enhances global warming as well, because the water gets warm because of all the toxics chemicals in the water. So the solution that we have is Eco Dry Dock, and what that is, it's a liner. We have been around for just over 12 years. We have about 1,400 installations worldwide. We have about 65 installations already in the States. We have quite a lot going in on the East Coast, because obviously the coral and the maintenance on the East Coast is quite higher than here on the West Coast, because the water is a bit cooler. But the product is basically, it completely reduces the painting of the vessel, the changing of the zincs, the ongoing maintenance. It just stops. It also enhances fresh growth on the bottom of the Eco Dock. So now that's actually a good thing. And also it has a value retention as well, because obviously boats that don't have any bottom paint have a much higher resale value, and boats that aren't sitting in water that's going to be corrosive with stray currents, whether it's electrical issues with the water as well as barnacles, also better for the environment. It reduces the cost of cleaning, and also leak prevention. So if a boat has a fuel leak, an oil leak, or whatever, that's not actually then going into the water. And if the pumps are running, you can look at it on your cell phone, see the pumps running, you can turn them off, and monitor what's going on with the Eco Dry Dock and the vessel as well as it does have a return on an investment for a boater. We are currently working with Marina del Rey. We've had one of our Eco Dry Docks in 2017 in the marina there. They wrote a report on their own behalf. I think it's like a 62-page study while COVID was going on, which was quite nice. We were surprised to see that. I just want to reflect, I've actually been in Newport Beach since 1999. I was the original importer of Sunseeker yachts. So I've had an office here in Newport since 1999. We first started on Bayside Drive. And then, but with Marina del Rey, just go back to that slide real quick. This is one of their cleaning machines. I think they call it the Aqua Cleaner. And we have one of our docks. Part of it's already arrived actually yesterday, and the rest of the installation will be in about 2 weeks. So that'll be to cut back their maintenance. Their maintenance cost actually was quite high, not to mention that obviously they do want to reduce the bottom paint issues that the marinas played with there, unfortunately. And then the other one is a study that we're arranging.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
I'll go ahead and finish.
Okay.
Okay, so the next slide. This is the Lookout 360 AI camera that is very innovative, and it helps bring a second set of eyes for the boat So for boat safety, this is a great tool. It actually has a brain. So it basically registers everything off the water and then helps people navigate so they don't run into buoys or people or whales. We're actually using it on the East Coast with the whales vessel safety with Viking boats as a pilot to really help with Cape Cod to reduce the whale strikes. Meanwhile, also there's also use for it in the marina. So you could put it stationary. So for helping with security purposes, and so then you don't have to have your
However,
hover boat go in patrol. So there's also uses that you can look at for helping reduce costs and value for safety within the harbor yourself. And then just a quick background. My background, I've worked with the city for many years. I helped develop a program. I worked with Shane Burkle. I filmed with Rob Machado and Ed Bigley Jr., a PSA that ran in every theater in Newport Beach for many years. I've worked with all the brands like Volcom, you name it, Hurley. I've empowered youth and sustainability for 25 years. And so I worked with a lot of leaders in Newport, but also Oceana, surf industry manufacturers. But we just recently, in your packet, you'll see what we just did with Roth Capital in creating strategic relationships to build economic development and also bring solutions for the local marinas and oceans. So love any way that we can take that effort and do anything here to build business and also help, bring solutions for the community.
Great, thank you. Additional public comments? Non-agenda items? Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation.
Hi, Adam Leverins. I'm glad to see there's someone from the city attorney's office here. I have a point of order that I want to raise on an agenda item. My familiarity is that you folks discuss things and then go out for public comment, and I think this point of order is relevant to bring up now. It's under current business, sub-item 3, and it's the proposal to increase shore mooring rates to 300 pounds on a number of shore moorings. If I understand staff materials, that's applying to 42 or 49 permittees, pardon me. And I got an email from the Harbor Department at 2:20 this afternoon saying in part, quote, "No notice was sent specifically to permittees. Once we have a response from Harbor Commission, we will send out notices if necessary." Tonight's agenda says that you're requested to approve the staff recommendation to update on shore mooring specifications or dismiss. I think, I'm sure this gentleman has more knowledge of the Brown Act and Open Meetings Law, but if these 49 people to be impacted haven't been notified, I think you should discuss this at next month's meeting. I defer to the Deputy City Attorney. Thank you.
Additional public comment? Additional public comment? It's a good point of reference, point of order. I plan on moving up item number 3 to item number 2 tonight, and item number 2, I'm going to move up to item number 3. Any issue with discussing this tonight whatsoever? Thank you. Okay, approval of minutes. Draft minutes. We've got some feedback from several commissioners. Are there any additional comments on the meeting minutes from last month?
Just a point on, starting on page 3, every time Mr. Mosher's name is mentioned, it's misspelled, and my name was also misspelled on page 3.
Wow. Any additional public comment? See none. I'd like to go out to public comment on the meeting minutes.
Sure. Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Jim Mosher.
How do you spell that?
What the staff missed is that there's an H after the S.
Thank you.
I don't usually offer any comments on your minutes because you do such a thorough job of looking at them yourself. But I would point out I was going to offer to help the staff with the spelling by filling out a speaker card, but I could not find any tonight. So you're at a disadvantage when the people speaking don't fill out a card telling them how to spell the name.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Adam Leverins again, sorry. I noticed in Commissioner Scully's draft proposal for the minutes related to the CDM moorings, he did strike out and adding some or correcting words, and it says, quote, It was his opinion that the commission should close out the objective and not move forward with the 20-foot offshore Big Corona Beach moorings. And they were 60-foot moorings, so I don't know if that's a typo in the draft or if at that meeting Commissioner Scully misspoke, but I just wanted to point out that those were 60-foot moorings, not 20-foot moorings. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comments on the meeting minutes from last month? Seeing none, bring it back to the dais.
I would move to approve the minutes with the comments from the 3 commissioners submitted with the packet, plus the corrections per Commissioner Marston, and that the motion is exempt from secret.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
Motion passes with 5 yeses and 1 abstain from Commissioner Young.
Thank you very much. Okay, just to repeat what I said, I had the numbers wrong. Under current business, we have 3 items to discuss tonight. First, it will be the Balboa Yacht Basin Marina reconstruction and the maintenance dredging. That's going to be a receive and file only action tonight. Number 3 under current business will be the recommendation of onshore mooring specification. We're going to move that up to number 2. And then finally, item number 2, code enforcement update, is a receive and file, and we will put that as number 3 tonight on the agenda. Okay, current business, we have staff report from Mr. Miller. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Chair Cunningham. My name is Chris Miller, Public Works Manager for the city. And I'm here this evening to provide an update to the Commission on the Balboa Yacht Basin and a couple projects that we have going on in the very near future. So on the screen here, I'm going to reverse the order and talk about the dredging project first because that's probably the easiest one and most concise. And then we'll bleed into the marina reconstruction. So for those of you who don't know, the Balboa Yacht Basin is located off of Harbor Island Drive, at the end of Harbor Island Drive, in Basin Marine Shipyard. We're proud to have them as a tenant. They're sitting in the audience. Thank you very much for attending. And but it's it's at the end of a street, a residential street, so it's a unique location. What we're going to be doing is dredging the Balboa Yacht Basin, and the need for dredging is that the sediment that is within the Balboa Yacht Basin is unsuitable for open ocean disposal. So this is the same problem that we ran across with the current Lower Bay dredging project. This material needs to find a home other than in the open ocean federal disposal zone, which is called LA3. LA3 is about 6.5 miles off of the entrance channel. And so as I was planning for the reconstruction project in this area, we asked ourselves if it needed dredging, and it could use some dredging. And then we looked at the material and realized that we need to find an alternate home. And then we realized that we currently have an alternate home via the Port of Long Beach, which is going to be taking the federal channels material via the Army Corps of Engineers later on this year. And then I also realized that the memorandum of agreement that the city and the Port of Long Beach executed earlier this year had exactly had additional quantities of material and had exactly the amount of material by sheer coincidence that we needed to dredge the Balboa Yacht Basin. So the stars aligned, and we decided to do this project back in early or mid-December to get the ball rolling in a very quick, expedient fashion. And we did that. And we are at the tail end of receiving our permits for this dredging project. We expect to receive them all within the next 2 or 3 weeks or so. And we also Also, we were supposed to go to the Port of Long Beach last night or yesterday afternoon. No, it was on Monday, pardon me, for their commission to approve and execute an addendum to our memorandum, our existing memorandum of agreement to accept the Balboa Yacht Basin material. But the Harbor Commission in Long Beach didn't have a quorum, so they canceled that meeting. But I'll be back within 2 weeks for them to execute that agreement to allow us to take this material to the Port of Long Beach. Now, we haven't put the project out to bid yet because we don't have our permits, but we intend to. And so the City Council will certainly make decisions as to whether or not the marina gets dredging based on the prices that we receive and so on and so forth. So it's not an official project as of yet, but we're at the final planning stages. The marina, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on dredging just the fairways. Orchestrating and moving all 170 boats at various times will be challenging. And that's going to be a challenge that we have to face for the marina reconstruction project. But for the dredging project, we found it necessary or adequate to dredge the fairways and to dredge as many slips as we can. And if we can convince boaters to vacate their slips, or if we can provide alternate moorage for them for the few days that they'll be in that particular fairway, well, then that will help the project. And we can reach a little bit further into each slip and make it just that much better. But overall, it'll be a positive project because of this disposal option. If we didn't have an issue with our sediment, I wouldn't be rushing to do this before the reconstruction project. But because we have this unique window, this limited window of opportunity at the Port of Long Beach, we decided to maximize maximize our efforts, and dredge as much as we could from the Balboa Basin. So that's essentially, timing. So this is the most critical part of the conversation. We were previously thinking that the timing for the port allowing us to take the material up via barge would be in July. That date has now moved to somewhere in late fall or perhaps January or so. That has yet to be determined, and we are in the process of trying to nail that down. It's a bit early for the port to give us exact dates because they have to do some work ahead of time to allow us to get in there. But we will be there in due course, and it'll be within the next 6 months or so. So this isn't something that the Balboa Yacht Basin tenants need to think about this summer, but certainly in the late fall time frame, early winter is when we will start the dredging process, assuming that the bids come back favorably and the City Council awards the contract. So I'm not sure what the pleasure is of the Commission, if they'd like to ask questions, or if you'd like to move on to the reconstruction, the marina reconstruction portion.
I've just got one, Chris. So dredging the fairways, I'm not sure that's the exact name of the fairways coming down there. Dredging it down deep, the laws of physics says that over time, the material that's high up above could be able to slip both boats down, push, go down. Right? So you're up, the deeper we can go in there, obviously, the better it is if their boats are all still there in the marina.
We agree with that, and we have that in mind,
Right.
hoping that that indeed would take place.
Right.
So we're dredging only about 2 feet or so, so it's not as significant, but every little bit helps, and that slope that will be created will certainly help.
Great. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So kind of alongside of Chair Cunningham's question about just going to fairways and not under the slips. Is that more of a logistics question because it seems to be inefficient? If you're just getting some but not all, and you could potentially get if boats were removed temporarily during the dredging, you can capture everything. Since we have this window of opportunity to get that unsuitable material to Long Beach, would it not make any more sense to try to be more comprehensive in the removal of that sediment? Since there is, I guess I learned now, there's 2 feet of it is approximately the depth you're looking at accomplishing.
Well, maybe on average, the average depth or the average amount we'd be dredging would be in that range of a couple of feet. It's not 3 or 4 feet. If that's just to be clear. Certainly, vacating the entire marina would be ideal, and I'll be coordinating with the tenants and letting them know of what's happening and trying to give them dates and posting when we think each fairway will be dredged. And I'll work with the harbor department, and certainly if we can make an arrangement for those people, if there's vacant moorings in the middle of winter that perhaps they can use for the time being, well, that would be great. We're also up against a quantity limitation. So we have a set quantity that we can take to the Port of Long Beach. So there's a little bit of juggling there too. I think we have a good plan. And most slips have adequate depth, plus or minus. So I think doing what we can in the fairways is the next best solution, short of a complete dredging with every boat removed. Okay, we'll do our best.
All right, thanks.
Additional questions?
Yeah, Chris, just curious what the cost of that is and of what you think the cost will be when you put it out for RFP, as well as are you going to include in that any other areas other than just the marina?
The second question, no, our effort is focused just on the marina. That's what our permits are in for, and they're being reviewed just for the marina. The cost, I am hesitant to provide a round number because I don't have the confidence as of yet in a number, but I'll have greater confidence tomorrow when the bids for the Lower Bay project come back. It's a different type of dredging project. Well, it's the same type of dredging project, but it's different equipment. But at least I'll have a better idea of what we might estimate the cost to be.
Okay, let's move on to the second part of the presentation, or the first, Balboa Yacht Basin Marine Reconstruction. Again, this is a receive and file. There will be no action on this tonight.
Great, thank you. There's a lot going on the screen. I'm going to zoom in on it, but I'm going to leave it at this perspective so I can talk more in a global sense. And then, and I know the audience can't see everything from here, and there's a lot of writing, but I will zoom in to create better visual aids. The purpose of reconstructing the marina, well, is to reconstruct it. It's exactly 40 years old. It's built in, it was finished in September of 1985. So it's reached the end of its useful life, and it's time for a replacement. Replacement dock would far exceed the useful life that it has now. In other words, it's projected to have a longer lifespan than what we have in Balboa Yacht Basin now. Balboa Yacht Basin is currently composed of 170 slips, and when we set about designing this, the goal was not to reinvent the wheel. And in fact, I wanted to keep the wheel as round as it could possibly be with the same amount of spokes. So the goal was not to change the slip mix, not to change to the greatest degree possible, not to change the configuration. Interestingly, as a side note, the previous pre-1980s or earlier configuration was completely different. And there's one person in the audience, or two maybe, who remember what it used to look like, but it did not look like it does with 5 fairways, or 4 fairways and 5 fingers. But the goal, again, was to keep about the same slip mix as best as possible, recognizing that some changes needed to be made. And I'll zoom in just a moment. But one of the biggest changes, or not changes, but improvements, would be ADA access for the slips. And right now, there really isn't an official ADA access, even though we do have users who do have that need. ADA access means 80-foot gangways and a little bit wider fingers to access those slips. So this design incorporates ADA access. It also accounts for vessels that are different size than they were 40 years ago when this marina was designed. Vessels have gotten wider, not significantly, but enough to where it does create some problems in having people find a slip that fits their vessel. Now, that's not to say that I'll be able to solve 100% of all the vessels that come to the marina, but the slips will be slightly wider and the fingers will be slightly wider to today's standards, accommodating ADA and so on and so forth. So with that, there's a table, which you can't see here, but there's some numbers on that table, and the slip count goes from 170 current slips to 100 in that we're not really eliminating, as the picture shows. There's very few slips that are being eliminated, 20, and it's for reasons that are fairly out of our control. We want to have a better marina that's more accessible. We have to bring it up to our current design standards. So I am proud of having a marina that basically looks almost the same. So now I'll zoom in just to provide a little bit better perspective. I know it's hard to see, but the dark lines represent the proposed marina, and the gray lines that are harder to see in the background represent what is there now. Interestingly, our consultant who is in the room with us, Anchor QEA, they did a great job in designing this marina because they were able to use some of the existing pile in place. So that gives us options when it comes time to bid the project out if we want to keep a certain amount of pile in place, or if we just want to start over with everything brand new. That's a decision for later. But we have mapped it out on this layout to where a significant number of pile can be reused and not touched, and the marina can be built around. And to me, that shows that the marina layout is fairly the same. I mean, it's barely changing. So I think that's a positive effect. At the top of VDOC, which is centered on the screen, there's an ADA access ramp, which is 80 feet. And you'll notice that the first few slips closest to the bulkhead have to accommodate, and they're shorter in length than the rest of that finger, that VDOC, because you have this wider, longer gangway that you have to have the slips account for. So that's why we have a few smaller slips at the beginning of that gangway. Also, those fingers are slightly wider to account for ADA access. Something else that the harbor master requested when we redesigned this was to include what we would call double loading slips, double loaders, or catamaran slips, double slips that might fit the need if there was a catamaran or 2 or 5 that chose to come into the marina. We would have the ability to rent those slips if those slips were free, or we could juggle maybe those tenants and create space for catamarans. It doesn't mean that those slips have to be used by catamarans, but we chose those locations and that small number as a representative sample of a good size. So you'll see that there are 3 35-foot slips and 2 40-foot slips. And the difference between those is that they just don't have there just isn't a finger down the middle of them, so it allows you to have slightly wider vessels. The vessels, the slips at the ends of the fairways remain basically the same. We tried to keep the same slip mix there. A couple concessions that are maybe not noticeable to only a few, but not all of those, what we call pitchfork slips, the 52, 50, 60, and 75, not all of them are have floats or docks on both sides. There are a couple that are, like on D dock, you'll see that there are no fingers on the east and the west side of the outer sides of those 4 slips there. And that's just, the only reason for that is a space constraint. Again, we are breaking our fingers, making them a little bit wider, and then you've got wider vessels, and that squeezes out some of the dock space. But 2 of those are enclosed, but the outer 2 are not. A fairly minor concession, but that's just what happened. The pump out station at the end of E-Dock will remain, of course. That is a well-used pump out station. We're happy to provide that. It's for use for anybody in the harbor, not just the Balboa Yacht Basin tenants. The guest slip at the base of C Dock, which is centered on the screen, it says public guest dock. That will remain in that location. That has been in place for about 10 years or so, and that's used for various purposes, but also used for people to come into the galley if they want to use it, or go to the shipyard. One of the things that I'm excited about is what I would hope is perceived as an improvement to using an area of the yacht basin which is really not used at all currently. And it's that space at the base between D and E dock in that odd shaped corner. And we currently don't have any slips in that area, but I thought it would be a good idea, or I thought we should entertain the idea of creating a space for dinghy racks, not a lot, just a few, and stand-up paddle boards perhaps, and make it only available to the Balboa Yacht Basin tenants. And that square hatched area at the base of D dock, if I zoomed in more, well, the writing points to it, it says it's low freeboard docks. So those are the same types of low freeboard docks that are at the Marina Park for launching sailboats, or in this case, they'd be for hand launching kayaks or dinghies. So just a more user-friendly setup. And we really didn't have to, it really didn't impact the slips to a great degree, except for one slip at the base of D dock. But we found that it was quite difficult actually to figure out at least the best use of that area. We went through several iterations to get to where we're at. We also, you'll notice, included an ADA gangway there as well. And we eliminated, or eliminate's the wrong word, but I'll just say it. We eliminated the gangway at the base of E dock, but we replaced it with the longer ADA gangway coming off of D dock. So D dock will have 2 gangways. It will have a 30-foot gangway going straight down the finger, or the dock, and it'll have an 80-foot gangway jutting out servicing E dock. Coming back to the end of E dock, we will still have a gangway that is at the end of E dock, just like we do now. And then we're going to mimic what I just described at the base of D and E dock, and mimic that to a smaller degree at the end of E dock adjacent to Beacon Bay. So you see the dark gray area has space for like stand-up paddleboards vertically positioned, and then the shaded, or the hatched area adjacent to the groin at Beacon Bay would be a hand launch area to launch those or anything else that people want to hand launch. That space in between E and the groin is, we just wanted to make a better use of that space. There currently are dinghy racks, you'll notice, in the parking lot adjacent to Beacon Bay, and those are rented out to our mooring permittees. Just to provide that. We're still going to provide that. I'm not touching anything on the land. The pump outs, we would relocate the pump out machine or motor, relocate that to the parking lot and have a stanchion, which is much more user-friendly, smaller, less footprint, in a more convenient location at the base of that pump out slip instead of its current location, which is at the tip of the finger, which does make it quite awkward and cumbersome, both for people getting on and off their boats, but also for the tenants in that adjacent slip. The marina does not extend out in the channel any more than it currently does, any more than it is allowed, so we're keeping that. And that's an overall summary. I think I've hit everything that I needed to on this slide. The next slide is just a pile count slide, which is way too hard to see, but it just represents how many piles that we have and how many that we are keeping. And I will note on the table here that we are going down from 97 pile to 94 pile. That's a good thing. But we are increasing the square footage, not by much, by like 10 square feet, from 139 to 148. The reason for that is because there's a different mix of piles. We're minimizing our piles to the greatest degree possible. Well, here's something else. We're also focusing, you can see it better on this slide, we're focusing most of the piles to be inboard of the slip along the headwalk. As opposed to now, most of the piles are at the tips of the fingers. There still will be a few at the tips of the fingers. If you look closely, you'll see that those few are because of those double wide slips. That is true, yeah, for only that. And so having the piles at the base of the slip is a preferred design nowadays, because that helps and reduces impact of piles. Boaters don't need to worry about swinging in and accidentally hitting a pile with their bow if they have a bow that's conducive to hitting a tall bow. So it's a much better design if you can do it to keep your piles inboard along the headlock area. And the docks were designed as the commission was updated back in February or that was March. They are designed for a concrete system. There are systems out there that last a long time, perhaps even double of what we currently have in the Balboa Yacht Basin. So the longevity of our docks in the future, once this is built, once the City Council approves the contract at a later date, well, we would have a much improved dock system. There is a brand new marina being installed at Dana Point that we're all familiar with. And so it would be that similar technology, whether or not it's that company or not, that's to be determined. But that would be how these would be built. There is, and now might be a good time to say that in this presentation, you haven't heard me talk about anything having to do with the landside development of Balboa Yacht Basin. That's intentional, because there isn't anything to report about the landside development of the yacht basin. And my responsibility is only in water as it relates to dredging and dock construction. The one thing that I can say, well, I just said it. I did check with my colleagues in the planning department ahead of this meeting, and I said, just in case we get any questions, is there anything I can say about the land side development for the Balboa Yacht Basin? And the answer is, there really isn't anything to say yet. The process is going slower than we anticipated, and they're still in the conceptual design, going back and forth. They're in extreme early portions of that discussion. There really isn't anything to report. So, I've done a lot of talking. I've gone over what I think are the basics of the project. Our next goal will be to get the project permitted, and I'm not anticipating any issues with the permitting process because our square footage is almost spot on to what it is. It's like 2% over, which is, in my opinion, reasonable. Our pile count is down with a little bit of increase in square footage. And so I'm not anticipating any major hurdles. We're keeping our slip mix. We still want to keep the same boaters that we have. And regarding the reduction of slips from 170 to 150, perhaps the city might decide that, through attrition, we have, people just leave the marina. Perhaps we can decide at a later date that, over the last, until this is built, the last X amount of months or X amount of year or what have you, maybe we don't rent slips or not, but we might be able to take care of that through regular attrition. So, I've done a lot of talking. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris. That makes a lot of sense. Bring you to the dais. Commissioner Stoll.
Chris, what would the plan be in terms of the construction? Would it be to do a finger at a time, or would it be to whack the whole thing out at one time?
Sequencing is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
I think the most efficient way and the least intrusive process for our tenants would be surgically one dock at one or two docks at a time, so that we can keep some people in the harbor or in the marina and then work on an A and B dock, let's say, or something like that. And it depends on how big of equipment we need to install it and access, but that'll certainly be something. And we'll, to the best of our ability, we'll offer moorings if people so choose, and we'll work out a plan. We'll work closely with my colleagues in the harbor department, and we'll do our best to accommodate as best as possible to minimize the construction to the degree that we can.
And then in your staff report, you talked about a modern beam accommodation. I mean, other than the cat, is the beams wider in the slips, or?
Yes,
It's hard to see the lines.
Yes, it is hard to see the lines, but that might be a good thing because the lines almost overlap. And you have to really go in there with a magnifying glass and really see. But we're talking like the slips might be 6 inches to 1 foot wider than they are now, somewhere in that range. It varies for each slip and each size, but they're slightly wider, not significantly, but certainly the boats from 40 years ago are much wider than they are today.
And we've had some discussion here in the Harbor Commission as it relates to the type of dock that is going to be put in. We heard from Pete Swift, and we've heard from others that have an opinion in regards. Do you have a spec now that you're going to put out as far as the RFP? Have you chosen that?
Yes, the Harbor Commission, the subcommittee gave a report to the Harbor Commission in March, and the subcommittee met with our design team and myself, and we reviewed the different styles and types of dock construction materials. So there's wood, there's aluminum, there's concrete, there's a hybrid in there. There's fiberglass has also been used as well. And we did an analysis of the pros and cons of each, and the longevity, the projected longevity, and we determined, and the subcommittee determined that concrete was the best way to go for this marina. And so we based this design on the screen using the concrete float system, not germane to an individual manufacturer, but to the structure. When you design a marina, you design it for one of those materials, but it affects how you design it because of the piles and flotation and so on and so forth. So this is a design that's reflective of a concrete marina,
Thank you,
which is
Chris.
exactly what we.
Thanks, Chris. I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Yuan?
Good report, very thorough. Yes, I was part of the committee when we discussed the materials. And one of the questions I have about that is we were talking about concrete versus timber and all the various styles. I think concrete is the most stable as far as you have more stability with concrete and the float. As you would say the equivalent made out of timber or some other materials. And I was just under the impression, or just a question, is I noticed that you're doing 3 foot wide piers or spacing between the slips.
Fingers.
And that's what is currently there. Did you say that has gotten larger or smaller, the same?
No, so it's all dependent upon what size slip you have. That will determine how wide the finger is. And then another variable is if it's an ADA slip, then you have another variable. So factoring all of those into play, the average finger width is 4 feet.
Okay. I was just knowing that the count has dropped by 20. Unfortunately, the net result is we're losing 20 spots. And there's nothing we tried to engineer around that and keeping the numbers up by going slightly smaller and into the areas on the dock surfaces that would have allowed more slip positions. I was just curious how much thought was given into that.
A lot. This has been a 6-month back and forth trial and error design period where it's been scrutinized and challenged, and the consultant AQA has done a good job of coming back with different iterations. But there is, if you want to keep the same slip mix, which is important, because we don't want to lose any tenants, we want to make our tenants as happy as possible and keep the same slip mix to the extent as possible. And also from a permitting perspective, they'll look at it much more favorable if we try our best to keep the same or similar slip mix, as opposed to catering to all big boats, let's say, or conversely, all small boats. So recognizing that, we did our best to maximize that, and just the laws of physics and design standards dictate that you cannot design a marina with those parameters 40 years later and keep the same amount of slips. But we're off by 2%, 2.5%. So that's really close. We're just adapting to today's standards and boat widths, and then ADA access.
What's the estimated cost of the project?
We still have to calculate that out, but my estimation is probably somewhere in the $6 to $7 million range, somewhere in that. We still need to focus, or reevaluate that based on this current design. But keep in mind that the city owns 100% of this marina, and we do charge an average rate for the slips. We don't charge too low, we don't charge too high. So we charge an average rate for the slips, and the return on investment is extremely short. If you look at it from the city owning and operating the marina, it's a very short number of years.
Okay, and I recall the material selection, concrete lasts almost double what some of the other timber made or aluminum structures, and therefore, even though it's a slightly greater cost, the return on that investment over the lifespan should be far superior.
Yes, we think we'll get more. We will definitely get more longevity before docks would need to be replaced or redone. The technology, you might think that, just a side note, you might think that concrete is concrete. What has changed with concrete? Well, I will say that there's been a significant improvement in concrete docks, and I'll just briefly say this one's an easy one. The concrete docks used to use steel rebar in the Balboa Yacht Basin. So steel rebar rusts, and the rust, they just rust through the concrete. So the concrete cracks. What they use now in docks, they use fiberglass rods, not steel. So fiberglass does not rust. So that's an example. If we go that route, that's an example of how we can increase the longevity.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Greer?
Yeah, just one quick question, and thank you for the presentation, Chris. Regarding the ADA, it looks like the A and C docks are not ADA compliant with the others. I'm just curious how is that accurate?
That is accurate.
And how is that, what's the complaint?
What's the,
Yeah.
what's the deal? We do not need to provide ADA access to, in this configuration, to every single marina. I think we think that we provided access to three of the five fingers. We've B, D, and E, as you just noted. So that's a very big representative mix, and there's nothing that says that we need to supply 100% ADA access to 100% of the slips. I think we're making a really good, defendable plan that works. Now, could we do ADA access to B and A dock? Yes, we certainly could. But what that would do is that would have a trickle-down effect, and it would create smaller slips near the gangway. It would squeeze might be the wrong word, but it would adjust the slip mix even more so.
Understood. Fair enough. Thank you. Mr. Marston?
So in your, thank you for the presentation, by the way. In your evaluation that was at the end of its useful design line, did you also evaluate the piles? And I mean, if you're going to keep them, I would think you would be evaluating their structural integrity.
Yes, we have done a pile inspection, and our piles are in really good shape. Concrete piles, there isn't a whole lot of stress on the piles. Basically, the floats go up and down, and sometimes they rub against the piles, sometimes they don't. So there isn't, from an engineer, you can appreciate this, there isn't a whole lot of stress, constant stress on that pile. So the wear is just not as great. And if they're in good condition, and most of them are, most or all of them are, then certainly they have the longevity to last throughout this next cycle. However, maybe further study, and maybe we can reduce that number and replace one or two or what have you. Or maybe the city council, maybe as an option item, we might decide for an extra X amount of dollars, we can replace all the piles, same size, of course, same hole, but just replace the piles if we decided to during the route.
Do you know how long they are?
They are long. They are on order. I don't know how long these piles are, but I know how long the piles are in general. And the piles that we're currently replacing elsewhere in the harbor, 35, 38 feet, somewhere in that range.
So the 4-foot dredging won't have any impact?
Oh,
on
no,
their-
oh, no.
And I was just curious about timing, like how soon do you think this project is going to come forward?
Well, I always say with permitting, especially for a project like this, I'd like to give myself a year for permitting
For
around
Coastal Commission or?
Coastal Commission, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Water Board. However, I am optimistic also on our permitting because I am proud of the design in that we're not making wholesale changes as I've already described. And I think that's going to be looked upon favorably. So I say a year, could it be less? I hope it's less. And then we would do final design. So this is conceptual design. Now once we get through the permitting process and we're confident we have a design that everybody's happy with, then we'll do engineering design. And that'll take some time, and then we'll put it out. So timing, at least a couple of years.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Ready? Last. I assume the pile is going to be changed at any time, so 5 years, 10 years from now, it can be changed.
Sure. If something happens, yeah, that's an easy fix. That's
Right.
a one-day fix.
So anyhow, very thoughtful design, nice work. I have no further questions. Okay, thank you.
Chair, I just had one quick question to ask. I'm not sure and haven't been up to date with the land-based development. And do we know what kind of product that's going to be? Is it going to keep the galley restaurant? Is it going to have
multifamily, and how would any of that interact with the slips?
It shouldn't interact at all with the slips. The land-based property is its own separate development. I don't want to opine on something because I just don't have any answers. The city does not have really any information to make public. Not even, we don't have the information we're willing to make public on. So that will come in due time on a separate path outside of this commission, unless the commission. I don't speak for a planning board. Community development department, but that's a whole other conversation. I don't have any information. Thanks.
Okay, can we go to public comment on this item? Please.
My name is Derek New. I'm with Bay Spring Shipyard. First, I'd like to say the dredging is a long time due, and look forward to that project. I told Chris that if there's anything that we can help with maneuvering boats, I know we're a lot more than half of where the keys are hidden on these. We move them out of the way for the dredge at a moment's notice. This is going to be my backyard for the next 40 years. Just a second. And hopefully longer for myself. Regarding the marina replacement, I would like to know if anybody's asked the dock tenants how they feel about the docks. Are they beyond their end of life? Is there anybody surveyed it? If there's anything that they see needs to be done more than just choosing to remove 20 slips, which is 12% of the slips that won't be income for the city. And also, I had a lot of people that said they don't want to come here and talk. They just didn't know how the cut list was going to happen. So, is it seniority or who spoke up? So, how that's going to go. And also, I welcome you guys to come visit Basin. We just did a dock revamp in the middle of it with Pete Swift replacing the fascia, cleats, paddle guides, and the dock edge moldings. We've done the electrical outlets, replaced water lines from the leaky copper to the PVC, all with local contractors, and we have not missed a day of work during these revamps. Also in here, are we going to have the dock boxes? Because without the dock boxes, the clutter on the dock will be a nice ride. But the good news is that we'll have up to 92 stand-up paddle boards and 46 kayaks on the thank you.
I don't want to completely speak for it, but this is the first public outreach that we've started for the Balboa Yacht Basin. I'm sure there's good questions and feedback for Chris in the process here, including questions like dock boxes and things like that. I think little things that are important.
Adam Loderns again. I appreciate Commissioner Marston and First Tech's observations on the piles. I was wondering that too. And then as far as the reduction in slips, as the gentleman just noted, it looked like a greater than 10% reduction. And I wonder, I've stayed in marinas where you have two boats rather than, and I wonder if any thought or was given to maybe decreasing the reduction by having two boats for each section. And then your mention of not renewing tenants as they leave through attrition. Perhaps the vacant slips could be turned into transient slips with whoever uses them knowing, this is a week-by-week basis. So I guess I'd hate to see people put out of there to keep their boat as finding space is such a challenge. Thank you.
Great, thank you for the suggestion. Additional public comment, please. If there's anybody else, please feel free to.
Just two questions regarding the dredging. When was the last dredge, and what's the purpose of getting a dredge?
Purpose of dredging is to keep the depth down there, and we have unsuitable material, and it's a longer conversation, but we have the terminal point. Otherwise, it costs millions and millions of dollars to dredge by taking that unsuitable material out on land. So it's a timing issue.
When was the last done?
1985.
I think you mentioned that in the beginning of the presentation. That last did it. Additional public comment?
Chairman Cunningham, members of the Harbor Commission, Bill Kenny representing the Newport Harbor Foundation. Chris, could you focus in on the southerly end of Finger E? Yes. And blow that up a little bit. Southerly end.
Oh, other end.
There we go. I know that there's a shorter slip at the very southerly end of E-Dock. There's been some discussion about the city acquiring a fireboat. And the absolute ideal location to berth that fireboat would be at the end of E-Dock because equipment could arrive there and have easy access. You might look at shortening that easterly 52-foot slip, slightly relocating the gangway, and creating a 31-foot slip at the end as opposed to the 25-foot slip. Just in case at some future date the city's able to acquire a fireboat. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to the dais. This is a receiving report unless we have additional questions.
Just one last question, Chris, on the reduction of 20 slips. Do you know a rough idea, was it from the larger slips or from the smaller slips yet? Can you give me any kind of understanding of who's going to get displaced?
It's on this sheet, and it's on this table right here, and it's a lot to absorb because I was anticipating that question, and it kind of got hard to pinpoint exactly, but it's in that. It's kind of all over the board, but it's not the bigger slips, because the bigger slips are largely staying the same. So it's in those medium-sized range of slips. And when, a point that was brought up, the percentage that I was using, 2.5%, that 2.5%, that number was the square footage. So I think I misspoke on that. That was the square footage difference. If you do the math from 150 to 170, it's not exactly 5%. But most, many marinas get rebuilt and they either significantly change or alter the slip mix or not. It's very hard to get it 100% to what you had before. And by the way, to answer one question, we will have, we're attending as of now, Keith John Boxes.
So it's in the 35 to 40 foot range. Is that fair to say that? Right?
In that range, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, receive and file. Thank you very much, Chris. Additional point of order on the agenda tonight. Item number 4, discussion of proposed revisions to the meeting code, Title 17. We're going to eliminate that from the agenda tonight, so if there's anybody in the audience who's on the edge of their seats dying to talk about that, we're going to table this for another month. Thank you. Okay. Going to item number 3, which is now item number 2. Recommendation on onshore mooring specification revisions. We have a staff report. Madison, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman. 1725.020, Section J, gives the Harbor Commission the ability to update or change the shore mooring specifications. This is a slide of our current onshore mooring permit, showing that all onshore mooring permits are listed at 18 feet. This is our current onshore mooring specifications, showing that specifications for shore moorings are based off of load length and not the permitted length. Gives you options of 12 foot, 15 foot, and 18 foot with a minimum weight requirement of 200 pounds. At the 12-foot rate, at 15 foot, it's 250 pounds, and at 18 feet, it's 300 pounds. This, we are proposing that all onshore mooring specifications for weights and chains be updated to reflect the permit length of 18 feet at 300 pounds. There are 429 moorings. 335 of the 429 moorings meet the proposed specifications of the 18-foot maximum length of 300 pounds. There are 45 moorings that do not currently meet the specifications based off of their assigned vessel length. And I am working with those permittees as their overhauls come up to get them into compliance to meet the minimum weight requirements. There are 31 moorings that meet the current specification based off of their vessel on the mooring. And there are 18 moorings that do not have a vessel assigned to them at all, which the city can rent out. So there are 49 moorings that would need to come into compliance if we upgraded the moorings based off of the 18-foot and 300 pounds. Municipal Code 1760-040B, Section 2B, states that the mooring permittee shall be responsible for payment of all permit rents, fees, costs of maintenance, and repair of mooring equipment. And our suggestion is to require that existing permittees come into compliance with the specifications of 300 pounds over the course of the next 2 overhaul cycles. Overhauls happen every 2 years, so that'll be over 4 years that they would need to come into compliance with the 300 pounds. Or if the mooring transferred or sold, that they'd have to come into compliance with the new specifications by the next overhaul. And then there may be a resolution that may be required for our commission to adopt the new resolution.
Okay, thank you for that. Remember, skip back in 2017, we made some initial changes to the shore moorings. We had 4-footers out there, and we changed everything to the 18. We should have caught this a long time ago. Bring to the dais, Vice Chair Beer, would you like to comment first on this, please?
Sure. Just one quick question. In the report, it mentioned or referenced 45 vessels that were short on weight, but then at the bottom it said 49 that need to come to spec. What's that extra 4 represent?
The 49, so 49 is not including those 45 that need to come into compliance already. The 49 that need to add the weight are just of the 31 that are
Got it.
in the 18 that are not.
Makes sense. So, just in looking at this and looking at all the comments that also came in from mooring permittees, which all seem to be pretty similar in nature, and looking at the recommendation from staff, I just kind of rough calculated some numbers out. So yeah, there's 94 total that at some point need to get caught up. And if you average the length of all of those 94, it comes out to an average length of 239. So that means on average, a mooring permittee, onshore mooring permittee would have to make up a 61-pound difference, which I did speak to Chuck South today. He confirmed it is $1 per pound installed. So it's about a $61 cost per permittee to bring it into compliance. So that's sort of the economics of the issue. And in looking at this, from my opinion, it seems like there's 45 that clearly are not in compliance. code. So the way I read this is they would have also potentially up to 4 years of bringing that into compliance.
Those 45 are being required to come up into compliance with whatever size vessel they currently have on there to the specifications for that size vessel.
So
And
they're required to bring that current right now?
Correct.
And you're working with them each time? Okay, well, that's great. The other piece that I would look at is the 18 that have no vessel assigned to them. They're just basically vacant moorings that do not meet the specification, which means that the city can't rent them to someone that comes in there with an 18-foot. They're just not rentable. I think they should also fall under bringing them current at the next maintenance or by the end of the year type of thing. And the balance going 2 maintenance cycles doesn't seem unreasonable. That would be my input on this.
Additional comments from Dive? We will.
So if someone's upgrading from a 250 to 300, they just pay for 15 additional pounds, it can be added to the mooring side, there's only 300 on it. Therefore, if it's $1 per pound, the incremental cost is what, as Vice Chair Beer has indicated. I just want to confirm that. Thank you.
So the cost is a one-time cost. Is that all in at 61? There's no other cost to it?
That is correct, yeah.
Thanks.
Depends. Some could be $20, or some could be $7. It's probably why they volunteer to pay for it in the first place. Make it easy. Additional comments? Before we go out to public comment, we got a lot of feedback on this, and there was a lot of sensitivity from the mooring holders, permittees, that they wanted to be responsible for the maintenance of their moorings. They always have been. It's part of the code. Before we go there, just a straw vote. Is there anybody on the dais here that feels like we should still be going down the path of the city actually paying for it, given the cost, or are you comfortable with the mooring permits paying for it? So just a show of hands of people that are fine with putting the burden on the mooring permittees to pay for this, knowing it's their tackle and they're responsible for maintaining the tackle. Is there anybody that's comfortable with that that's where we're going on this thing? So if that helps in the public comment time. The only issue is the discussion of how long to give the permits time to come up to speed, not on the 45 since it's required, it's the next 31 plus 18. So whether it be the next cycle, the cycle after that. I can tell you, we're talking very small money, so my feeling is up here that, again, come back for discussion after public comment, that it should be, obviously in the next 2 cycles. I'd like to see it in the next cycle, but we're splitting hairs here. So with that, how many people want to speak? Raise your hands on this issue. Okay, please come. I didn't know what we have before.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify. Sure. The commission would still have to vote on.
We are absolutely. It's a straw vote. Just get a feel. Just we've been working with the Newburgh Mooring Association for a long time, and we just want to clear the air before.
Adam Leverins again, thank you, Madison, and commissioners and Commissioner Beer for reaching out to Chuck South. A lot of the concern in the emails, this is different somewhat than the staff report that initially came out with the agenda. The time frame for waits. The staff material originally said some people would have 30 days, and you look at it as a mooring permittee, if you had your service in October, and then you acquire a permit, and then you got to pull the stuff up again, you know, the cost is pretty insignificant, that's agreed. And thank you for confirming that. When the mooring field C realignment, I talked to several service providers and heard figures all over the map. The public records request trying to find out where that dollar a pound figure came from and didn't get anything, so that is helpful. The cycle is helpful. So a lot of what you heard before just now was based on things that seem to have become moot points. So thank you for recognizing that. I still would appreciate if the actual permittees to incur that minor expense would have been individually noticed. That's just my thing, but thank you.
Additional public comment on the moorings? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais. Are there additional questions or clarifications on this subject?
Question is, are we going to make a motion to approve this, or what is the plan?
I think we're heading down that path.
Okay.
Any additional questions on the mechanics of this process? And then ultimately I will ask if there is a motion on this, and we'll clarify and make sure we got it right with staff and the public on what exactly we're pushing forward. So,
I mean, I think I would like to see us move forward with in alignment with the staff report, providing the period of time that the staff report has outlined over 2 cycles to get the 49, or excuse me, the 31, I think was what we were talking about. The 31 done, the 45 should be done as I don't think we need to do anything on that. I think the code is the code, and I don't think we need to do anything on that. But I do think we need to include in that 45 the 18 that don't have a vote on it.
Madison, can you go back one photo, please? There was 2. There was recommendation 1 or recommendation 2. That's the foil I'm looking for. Right there. So, yeah, I thought maybe there was some wording there that we can point to. But why don't we start with a motion and then see if we can't come to some clarity exactly what we're proposing for us here.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Chair,
this is
if I might.
exempt.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, if I might, whoever makes the motion, would you please include a requirement for staff to bring you back a resolution drafted by the city attorney at the next most convenient meeting? And it'll reflect exactly what you decide.
Right.
That just to put it in the books properly, the city attorney will draft a resolution that you can properly sign.
Great.
So I make a motion, this is exempt from CEQA, and to have city staff create a resolution that would require the 18 onshore moorings that are vacant of boats to come into compliance with the 300-pound minimum requirement at the sooner of their next maintenance, biannual maintenance, I guess, or the end of the year, whichever comes first. And that the balance of the approximately 31 moorings come into compliance over the next 2 maintenance cycles. And again, just to affirm that the 45 will come into compliance as soon as reasonably possible, but no later than their next annual maintenance.
And we don't need to make mention of costs because they are responsible for the costs of their tackle. So.
Commissioner Beer, or Vice Chair Beer, would you clarify by the end of what year?
12, 31, 25. Or just the 18.
You clear on the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. First, we have a second. We'll vote, please.
Motion passes with 6 yeses.
Thank you very much. Okay. Moving to item number 2, that is now number 3, code enforcement update. Believe we will have a staff report tonight from Mr. Kozolani, Deputy Harbor Master Kozolani, to be exact. Please take it away.
Well, good evening, Chair Cunningham, members of the Harbor Commission, Matt Kozolani, Deputy Harbor Master. I always appreciate and look forward to the opportunities to come before you and discuss our code enforcement activities on the water. And because I feel it's an opportunity to highlight the efforts of our very small code enforcement team, as well as the supporting role that the men and women of the Harbor Department play in supporting their enforcement efforts as they patrol the harbor on a daily basis. Today we're discussing some of our special enforcement programs, but I think it's vital to talk about our enforcement philosophy and goals prior to any discussion about enforcement that sets the stage. So our enforcement is based on education, and we try to ensure that people understand the reasoning behind the code, rather than taking a very hard-nosed approach to enforcement. And in some jurisdictions, that is the tone. We focus more on education and encourage people to comply with the code. And we're collaborative in our approach. So we look for solutions. We are spirit of the law versus letter of the law. And the ultimate focus is promoting a clean, safe, and well-enjoyed harbor. And I think this picture on the PowerPoint kind of captures our approach to enforcement. And it's a little hard to see, but as Commissioner Scully at our annual summer summit that we hold with all the map holders. And in addition to Commissioner Scully, there's myself, we have members of the Coast Guard there in attendance, talking about just how our map holders can facilitate code compliance with their operations, as well as ensuring safety as they transport their passengers throughout the harbor. So some of the special enforcement programs we have been focused on over the last year and a half, starting first with speeding enforcement. And the way I look at our patrol staff is they are more of a traffic calming device mechanism. And we do get a lot of complaints about speeding throughout the harbor. Our team is there to try to slow people down to the best of their ability. Most of our speeding incidents are resolved with just a verbal warning. And that verbal warning doesn't always involve like a personal conversation. It can be used as hand signals, maybe the lights on the patrol boat. Most of the incidents are resolved with a verbal warning, with administrative citations being reserved for the most egregious violations. I have a video because I think it captures all the challenges that come with speeding enforcement. It's 10 seconds, bear with me. It'll kind of show you, you can see a boat just zipping through. So this is some of the challenges that occur with speeding enforcement. Number one, we have limited resources, only 4 patrol boats spread throughout the entire harbor, so being in the right place at the right time can be challenging. We also have an issue that our patrol boats cannot exceed 5 knots unless under exigent circumstances. So chasing down someone who is obviously clearly exceeding the speed limit from a safety perspective, we just don't see the value in that. So there are times where a boat will just get away because we can't jump into this fully clear and understandable. And then I think we also, probably the biggest challenge is we have limited police powers. So we do not, well, we can, but we steer away from conducting traffic stops as a sworn police officer would do. So our focus is mostly on conducting brief consensual encounters with voters to educate them on the code and the no-wake zone and keeping within the 5 miles an hour within the harbor. And this heat map kind of shows where our incidents have occurred where we have actually engaged someone. As you can see, a lot of them are near the mouth of the harbor, and oddly enough, a lot of them happen in front of Marina Park, and there's a reason for that. That's because a lot of our rental companies, some of them have pontoons, some of them have gas-powered, electric, and so the customers are trying to return to their home base as opposed, and so they're zipping through trying to get back to the commercial dock. Fishing enforcement. This is relatively new for the Harbor Department, and it's in response to complaints on 3 particular items. So one, fishing from public docks where it's completely prohibited, trash being left as a result of fishing activities, and then restricted access to public docks. And we've really started focusing on fishing enforcement since about March of this year. And again, all about education. There are obviously various challenges with fishing enforcement, so again, limited resources. So our staff have to visibly see the violation in order to take enforcement action. And with the number of public docks being out there, it's challenging to observe a violation as it occurs. And of course, just public perception. Fishing is part of our community, and so it is challenging, difficult to take anything other than a verbal warning as enforcement action, because we've been fishing here for years and we'll continue to do so, and so we want to encourage fishing, but education is where our approach is focused at. And then with a lot of our people violators, for lack of a better term, are under 18, and so it's a lot of their mistakes are picking the wrong dog to fish from. And I think a lot of it has to do is they don't drive, they go to the closest dock that's to home, and they're not so much focused on whether it's prohibited or not prohibited, they just pick the closest dock. And so issuing a citation seems a little bit harsh, so we're focused again on that education. And then finally, officer safety. Harbor Master Blaine can attest to this, that sometimes when you engage people on a public dock and they're fishing in a place where they're not supposed to, there can be times where they become a little hostile and angry, and our staff have expressed concerns about engaging people who have knives on them, other sharp objects, so there's that element of officer safety. If we do anything beyond verbal warnings at this point. And here's just a heat map showing where we have incidents of violations of our fishing ordinances. And as you can see, most of it's isolated to the Balboa Marina Public Pier, the Ryan Wharf Public Dock, and the 19th Street Public Dock. And why is that? Because that's where fishing is prohibited, and that's where we see most of our occurrences. You were already familiar with the DICAT program. We talked about this last year. I'm only bringing it back because the last time I was here, I talked about how we were still implementing this program and trying to find consistency, and I brought it back just to praise our staff on the level of consistency now, where every boat that is coming into our harbor, whether it's a new boat being placed on a mooring as part of a mooring permit, or as a mooring license, or through the sub-permit program, just a boat staying in Anchorage, we are now, I'm confident we are DICATing every vessel that's staying overnight or currently within the harbor. So I'm pleased about that. And I wanted to celebrate the benefits of the program. And obviously, the protection of the environment is the most obvious value to that. But we look at the DICAT program as an opportunity to explain city rules to people who are new to our harbor. And so their first introduction to city staff and harbor department is us going out there in front of the atmosphere, asking them to DICAT their boats. And probably one of the most unrecognized aspects of the DICAT program and benefit is the deterrent factor. So we collaborate with our partners from the harbors, and we will get routine calls saying, hey, we have an individual that we think may be headed up your way. They have broken some of the rules in our harbor. You should be aware. And so when these individuals, if they do in fact enter our harbor, it gives us the opportunity to engage them in a positive manner, explain the rules, and I think it does well too as a deterrent factor in preventing other problems. after-hour patrols. So we have been focused on early morning patrols for the longest time, looking for things like people living aboard on their boats without permits, noise from like the rowing clubs. We've expanded our after-hours patrols to also include things like navigational lights, speeding, noise from charters and boat rentals. And probably one of the newest things we are looking at is unattended vessels in the anchorage after sunset until daybreak. And we are expanding our after-hour patrols, not just during the winter months, which is typically when we've done it, but now it's a year-round operation. So we're staying later, we're staying even during the summer when it goes dark, we're out there on patrol. And I think the picture on the upper right-hand corner kind of captures what we've been looking and think is happening. So we believe that a lot of times people in the anchorage, they don't come back to their boats at night. And on the first after-hours patrol, we find a boat in the anchorage, unattended, after sunset. So it's not really trying to capture that moment in this PowerPoint. And the picture on the left is kind of funny too. Navigational light enforcement patrol by our staff. And it's a tale of two boats. You can see one has the navigational lights on, and the other one did not. And so I was actually going through that picture. I was able to educate them on the code requirements. It was really good. Some opportunity for them. So next steps. Again, we are committing to maintain enforcement presence now on the weekends, evenings, and early mornings. Again, most of our past after-hour patrols was limited to the mornings, but now we're going weekends, weekend nights on a consistent basis. And furthermore, we're going to focus on staff training. So as we move from just your traditional code enforcement, things like property maintenance, codes, sea line deterrence, and kind of focus on more of these specialized enforcement issues, we want to ensure that our staff, and not just the code enforcement officers, but every member of the department has the necessary training to effectively enforce these sections of the code, both the Title 17, as well as from the Partners Navigation Code and California Code of Regulations and a few other sections. So we've developed an advanced training program for our staff, and I've listed just some of the courses that come from the California POST, which is the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission. These classes are put on by the Division of Boating and Waterways, they're Coast certified, and they're focused on boating safety. This is just a small list of what we will be sending our staff to. I am pleased to tell you that my Code Enforcement Officer, Jeffrey Goldfarb, and myself were the first members of the department to attend the basic coastal operators course in Ventura in May. This is a relatively new class that is focused on providing training to our patrol officers who are non-sworn. In great class, we learned a lot about patrol techniques, search and rescue operations, first aid, water survival. It's just a huge gamut of learning opportunities that we came away with, wealth of knowledge that we came away with, and all of our staff will be sent to these classes at New Mark as they are focused on boat safety, but for non-sworn personnel. With that, concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Bring to the dais. Questions?
Two items, Matt. One is, we saw in a staff report, the Harbor Master report last month, and you mentioned it here when you're doing code enforcement at the public docks with people that are fishing, and it's exchange of words possibly a little hostile, and the person that you're dealing with has a knife on the side of their belt. What are you and your code enforcement officers doing from that point forward?
Great question. We tend to keep, from an officer safety standpoint, we tend to stick on the boat. Right. We keep our fair distance, and we focus most on education rather than anything else beyond that, recognizing there's an officer safety issue. I think Master Blake's experience really brings attention to that safety aspect and the concern that from 1 second to the next, the situation can elevate instantly. And so there's definitely that in the back of everybody's minds is how we all want to go home safely, and so making sure that elevating the situation over choosing the wrong public dock may not be worth it from issuing a citation versus just focusing on a verbal warning.
Have you had to engage law enforcement?
I have not as of yet, and I don't believe any of our staff have had to call. I think Harbor Master Blank was probably the first experience that I'm aware of where somebody went to that extreme, but it's something that we need to collaborate on with our law enforcement partners. We do have the ability to contact them through our onboard radio system, and we are expanding. We will be adding radios that directly communicate with the Newport Beach Police Department at a future date. We're getting those both radios installed.
And then there's just a comment, the annual meeting that you held, and we talked about this with Harbor Master Blank in the last meeting. I thought you did a great job. It was a good meeting. You ran the meeting and did a very good job, and collaborating with outside agencies was excellent. And the part that really stuck with me was how freely the conversation flowed between code enforcement and the map holders, code enforcement and the shore permits, and being able to talk about the issues that everybody's facing on the water. I thought that was very good, very healthy, and I think there's a good collaboration between the Harbor Department and the marine activity permits holders, and I commend you for that. That's a great job. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Additional questions, guys?
I just also want to commend you, Matt, on a great job, and ditto what Commissioner Scully said. And I'm very much in support of education over regulation. I think it's really good and presents a good image from the city and the Harbor Department. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Not the easiest job in the world. Going out to public comment, please.
Hello, everyone. Ken Hatch, mooring holder here in Harbor. I've known Matt since he came over to the harbor side to work in code enforcement. And we haven't always agreed on everything, but I have to say, I think that since the city came in and the first harbor master and the second harbor master, things kind of became, especially with the mooring, because there's more interaction there than there are with folks in front of residences, it kind of was like a us against them sort of a thing for the first several years, and kind of even in the last couple it was a little dicey with everybody over the issues that have been going on, but I think we're getting pretty well resolved now. But I really like the direction that Harbor Master Blank and Deputy Harbor Master Kozelian are going with their enforcement, in that they are part of the harbor now, and they're just trying to make everything work for everybody. And the us against them thing is really fading away. And I get a good sense from the other mooring people too as well. And we appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks, sir.
Thank you for the positive comment. Additional public comment, please.
Last time I spoke on this issue, maybe Harbor Master found it incomprehensible, so I'm just going to try again. I'm just interested in finding out what kind of training the members of the Harbor Department get in helping boaters access their moorings in the tide event.
Thank you very much. Additional public comment?
Chair Cunningham, members of the commission, my name is Jim Mosher with an H. Last night in this chamber, the city council approved the budget, and it was brought to their attention that in the budget, the Harbor Department personnel, who I think were previously called harbor service workers, are now in the budget called harbor safety officers, which in some people's mind might cause some confusion because public safety employees are usually a special category. Fire department, police department, they have special benefits and so forth. So we think of those actually as the people that, a different category. And since the Harbor Department's theme is providing service more than enforcement, I'm just wondering what the name is
things are better. There are a whole bunch of people, I talk more than I want to. There are people that are fearful of retaliation, so they don't come talk, so I try to do it because I'm stupid and less fearful. But the transition of the terminology harbor service worker to harbor safety officer has a lot of people concerned. And then Mayor Stapleton last night, as far as pension differences between safety employees and regular worker employees, oh no, not to worry, these won't be sworn officers. But Mr. Cozyline had training up there for a course for like the rules of arrest. And if they're going to be post police officer standard training certified and things like that, that's different. But the perception of some people now is that the training isn't there, but some are acting like cops. And in deference, I mean, I'm sure this gentleman spoke truthfully about his experiences, but again, I encounter a lot of people that feel differently than that. And Mr. Blank is excellent at public relations and statistics and all that. But I'd like to know where the mindset, where officers, safety officers came from. Don't need to do it tonight, reach out. But just recognize that there is concern, and it'd be nice if that can be assuaged. And I know you've been doing a good job the last several months of trying to be helpful more than intimidating to a lot of people. So every step that way is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. See no additional, bring it back to the dais anymore. Okay, moving on to ad hoc committee updates. Are there any ad hoc committee updates on the three that we have? Sure. You have one? Rudy?
Regarding the Promontory Bay public pier concept, I propose that we stop further discussion, time, and effort on this idea.
I guess we took it off the agenda. Do we need to actually have a resolution or not? I mean, a vote on that, or is it just what's the proper way of eliminating ad hoc?
To dissolve an ad hoc.
Dissolve an
It
ad hoc.
does require an action from the
Okay.
And you can do that today without.
Okay.
It does not need to be agenda.
Chris, additional comment on that one? This one?
Well, on the Promontory Bay,
Yeah.
I would interpret that as a sub item of so that.
So the subcommittee that was looking at the potential public dock in Promontory Bay was part of objective number 5's subcommittee. There was no special ad hoc.
Right,
Specifically on that topic. So nothing needs to be dissolved and no
Got it.
action needs to be taken, other than to declare you're not spending any time.
Okay. It just, there was a public documentation that was fuzzy as to whether that's there, or actually you're correct, we did happen to objective number 5 a few months ago to explore the Promontory Bay. So, sounds good. Any discussion on that, on the Promontory Bay? We're just kind of killing that as an objective. But we got ahead of ourselves, so I should go back to ad hoc committee updates. Are there any additional comments on ad hoc committees?
Well, I do have a comment, if I may, Chair.
Sure.
The Public Dock Utilization Ad Hoc Committee, which, as I recall, and I could be wrong, but I think Commissioner Spurcheck wanted to initiate that surrounding the Promontory Bay initiative. So nothing's really happened on that, and now subsequently, Promontory Bay, we're not going to spend time on. So I would move or ask if a motion is appropriate to eliminate that from the ad hoc committee agenda.
Any issues up here on that? We have a second.
Second.
All right, we'll go out in public comment. Any public comment on the ad hoc that we're about to dissolve? Seeing none, we have a vote. Do we need to clarify that, Harbor Master Blank? That motion, just to dissolve the public dock?
Exempt from CEQA.
Yes,
Yeah, we're just removing one of our ad hocs.
You made the motion properly, it has
Right.
been seconded, and
All right.
as soon as the clerk.
All right, let's have a vote, please.
Motion passes with 6 yeses.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Harbor Commission 2025 objectives. We've been getting through a lot of them this year, still a few of them out there, but are there any updates tonight on the objectives?
I have one on the safety objective. The only thing I wanted to bring up on the safety objective is, there hasn't been much discussion about it, but there's I guess it's a law in California now that you've got to have a voter card, which is here. If you drive a motorized vessel, and a motorized vessel could be a Duffy, it could be a sailboat if it has a motor, but everyone who's operating a boat now that's 16 and older have to have a voter card. And it takes a couple hour test online. It's actually pretty good. I mean, I thought it was interesting. And I do know that operators of rental boats are exempt from that. That was interesting. And then, Paul, I think, don't your harbor safety or harbor workers have to have a voter card?
Yeah, they do. It is a qualifying, it's a qualification that they must receive, they must meet before their application for a position with the Harbor Department.
Okay, good. Well, I just thought, it's probably good to get that information out, but it's required as of January 1st of 2025, and it covers everybody. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of Harbor Commission and the audience, as well as put it in the record.
Thank you. See no additional public comment on the Harbor Objective update just now. Seeing none, Harbor Master update.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Paul Blanker, Harbor Master. Very quickly, this is what happened in May. In terms of keeping the harbor clean, there's a vessel that you can see a picture of there in the J field that's under significant scrutiny now. We're working with the permittee to get that vessel cleaned up so it's not discharging paint and other materials into the harbor. One of our harbor service workers also determined that the brains, circuit boards, etc., associated with the trash skimmers were in need of a software upgrade, and that just took a new fresh pair of eyes. We look at those things every week, but a new harbor service officer was able to determine that the reason that particular skimmer was unreliable was because it made the software upgrades. In terms of keeping the harbor safe, we did participate and promote Wear Your Life Jacket Workday and Safe Boating Week. We also rescued a lot of paddleboarders, wayward paddleboarders, or some severe wind, etc. And we aided one vessel among many that was just disabled and needed to be stabilized while effective repairs. So he was later able to get it. Matt's already shown you the video of Speeding the Harbor. In terms of well enjoyed, the big event in May, the two big events in May were the wedding on the water, which you see an image of there in the middle, and the third annual Battle in the Bay water polo tournament. Newport Harbor High School boys and girls prevailed over Carmel High School in both exhibition matches. The next Battle in the Bay has been scheduled. It will be in August of 2026. We're going to go 18 months for that one, but they're going to have it in August next time. In terms of odds and ends, we did have to evict a mooring licensee for non-payment. That's the first one we've done. And the most amusing email exchange in the month had to do with a woman who complained about debris in the harbor reported to her by a diver who was fixing the propeller of her electric vessel after she backed over her own stern line getting out of the local water. In terms of statistics reporting, you will notice there was a large uptick in calls for service, almost 3,000 in the month of May. You'll notice that a significant number of them were not mapped. I was on the phone with IT today. We're going to turn the location identification in the tool from a 2-click process to a one-click process to close that gap. Otherwise, you can see that it was a very busy day. Here's the visualization of the identity map. We're tracking year from year. there's a significant reduction in the total line work usage, and that has everything to do with the fact that the boat show used the dunes to load in all their temporary docks rather than the line work last year. That was last year. All green on the anchorage utilization, and lots of days where there was more than just what was on the calendar. The all green means that every single one of those visiting vessels in those anchorages was nighttime. When you see a red bar, it means the vessel was not nighttime. Here's all the statistics. Here's all the statistics year over year. It was a busy night.
Thank you, Harbor Master, for being quite crisp in that presentation. Any questions up here at the dais?
Harbor Master Blank, the harbor service officers that helped the multiple people on paddle boards during the month there in the wind, and the comment about no safety briefing was provided to the people. Does that information flow back to the vendor?
Absolutely, it does.
Okay, that's great.
When we return the paddle boarders to their vendor, if we have time and opportunity to meet with them right then we do. If they don't, if we don't have time to meet with them right then and there, if they don't have time to meet with us, they receive a notice violation from the officers.
Excellent, thank you. Great report, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. We have public comment on the Harbor Master report. Seeing none, we'll bring it back. I just saw this as number 8 presentation. Those who don't know, it's my final night, my last meeting with the Harbor Commission. Thank you. Is there something we wanted to do? I didn't think so. All right.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman?
There's a number of us that would like to say something.
Yes. Just a quick comment. Scott, as you complete your 8 years of service on the Newport Beach Harbor Commission, I wanted to take a moment to express my deep appreciation for everything you've done for our harbor and community. Over the past 6 years that we've served together, your support, guidance, and steady presence have been invaluable to me. You brought not only a wealth of knowledge, but an intelligent, thoughtful approach to every issue you faced. Your leadership has been instrumental in some of our most important long-standing initiatives, most notably the successful renewal of RGP 54 and the successful conclusion of our upcoming harbor dredging project, which is critical to the advancing in the future of our harbor. You also played a central role in the development of the Open Water Initiative and building the Harbor Department into the professional and responsive organization it is today. You've helped lay a strong foundation for the future of Newport Harbor, and your legacy will be felt for years to come. It's been an honor to work alongside you, and I want to sincerely thank you for your years of service, your friendship, and your commitment to making our harbor better for everyone who enjoys it. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Steve.
After that, there's not a lot to say, but I just want to thank you as well. You've been a real inspiration, and you've taken on some projects, and you get your teeth into it, you don't let go, and you've traveled on your own time for the benefit of the harbor and keeping the water clean and all these things that we all try to promote and live towards. So thank you very much.
Quick note, those two said,
yeah.
and just it's been a real pleasure working with you on the commission.
Your passion has been inspiring, and I really appreciate working shoulder to shoulder with you. And I'm very happy that, as your nickname has been, Dredge, that we have reached our moment of truth and getting the project approved, getting right up to the very last second of your tenure as in your 8 years of the commission. So I'm happy to see that happen, and again, thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, Scott. I hope we can still call on you for knowledge and morale. You know where I'm at.
Chair Cunningham. I would like to also echo words that the commission just said, but I want to emphasize your involvement in dredging, as was mentioned by Commissioner Scola. You have really helped both myself out, the city, and you were joined by Adam Gale with Anchor QEA in the back. He's been our partner throughout the RGP dredging program. You really took that program to a whole nother level. You pushed us.
you pushed us in a positive direction, and you helped us implement changes, and you helped guide us through and working with the agencies. And then there's the Lower Harbor dredging program that you were heavily vested in, and the trips to Washington and the countless strategy meetings on direction and providing advice and helping guide the team towards a very positive ending. We've renewed our regional general permit, and tomorrow the Corps of Engineers are going to be opening up bids for the Lower Harbor dredging project. Along with that, you are really familiar with sediment testing, and you're the expert on the commission because you understand all the charts and maps that we have and use for the RGB program as well as our Lower Bay program. So with that, I thought it would be apropos.
You can bag of dirt.
A jar of sediment from the harbor, and this is
suitable, I hope.
This is a real sampling vessel, a jar that Adam helped us out with. And there's a label on this, and this is how it would be labeled. Normally, you would take the sediment and then bring it to the lab, and on it says, Harbor Commission 2017 to 25, Scott Cunningham, Lower Bay dredging, suitable LA3 material. So
suitable.
All
right.
Yeah.
I was expecting to be hand off with unsuitable.
So you can keep this on your desk and shake it up like a snow globe.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Adam is
Adam,
here.
I enjoyed all those times together. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. All right.
I will also add my thanks and keep it short. Thanks Dredge, and I have the traditional going away gift from the staff to the outgoing chair. So if you'll allow me to approach the bench.
I will. Thank you. My mentor when I started on the Harbor Commission was Commissioner Blank Chair at the time. Thank you very much and appreciate all the guidance that staff now has given us. Adam, great years we spent together doing all the dirty work that we did. Glad to see the bids opening tomorrow. But thank you guys here. We've enjoyed it. We've had a lot of laughter, a lot of hard times, a lot of difficult times, emotional times, but it's been great. I miss you. Maybe this dais much. 8 years, 4 months is basically 100 meetings, close to 100 meetings up here. So really appreciate serving for the city. It's been great. And we hope the direction that the harbor is going continues because a lot of good people, but it's time to pass the gavel on to new commissioners who come up with better ideas, good ideas, and keep moving the ball forward. So thank you guys very much for the time. Thank you. All right, motion for reconsideration. My glasses out. Motion to reconsider any action taken by the Harbor Commission which was made at the same meeting or subsequent meeting at which time or which the action was taken and may only be made by one of the Harbor Commissioners who voted. Is there any motion for reconsideration? Seeing none. Commissioner announcements, discussion items. Seeing none. Matters that you would like on future agendas that I will not be at. Seeing none. Next time for the meeting, Wednesday, July 9, 5